Happy Tuesday, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good. Mr.
You're
Noah,
good?
how's our... Yeah, same.
Good.
Mr. Noah, how's the technology looking? Yeah, we do. All right, thanks. And counselors, just a heads up that Kent is going to provide the follow-up from public comment tonight. So rather than Kathy.
Hey, Mike, this is Chief. We're trying to get one of our guests in for the proclamation. What's the best way? He said the link didn't work. Tristan. Thank you.
Mr. Nullup, you'll let me know when we're ready to go. Okay. All right, I will call this Tigard City Council and Local Contract Review Board and Town Center Development Agency meeting to order. Roll call, City Recorder, please.
Youth Councilor Nog.
Here.
Councilor Goodhouse.
Here.
Councilor Newton.
Here.
Council President Lube.
Here.
Councilor Shaw.
Here.
Mayor Snyder.
I am here. All right, Mr. Nullup, will you please put the flag up on the screen, and I'll ask everyone to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance on their own muted. Thank you. All right, thank you. Staff, do you have any non-agenda items?
Good evening, Mayor. We do not.
All right, I'm going to make a quick comment briefly about the youth counselor voting. There are still some questions that I think are present and that we need to work through related to some of the budget items and voting. I don't think we're prepared to do that this evening. So Youth Counselor Nog, I just want to let you know that there are a couple places in the agenda tonight where even if the meeting guide says that there may be an advisory vote, I'm going to hold on that until we can work through some more of those questions and issues. So just as a heads up on that. Anyone have questions about that? We'll work it in the future. Okay. Let's see, we'll move on to public comments. Callers with general comments should call in now at 503-966-4101. And callers with testimony for agenda items number 6 and 7 should call in when those agenda items are called and announced by me during the meeting. So again, 503-966-4101 is the number to call for public comment. The first item in this area tonight will be follow up on previous public comments, and I believe Communications Manager Wyatt is with us to provide follow up. Is that correct?
Correct. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Good to hear dogs barking in the background. You may hear Michael Jordan bark during this, hopefully not, but fingers crossed. We did have one follow-up item from last week, and that was a question from former Mayor Dirksen, also a recent guest on the Talking Tiger podcast, who asked about the status of the Fano Creek extension. So got some information from our teammates on that one. And really the delay is due to a couple items. First, during the final plan review with utility agencies, it was determined that a CWS water reuse line conflicted with our proposed boardwalk. And obviously this caused the plans, permits, and land application to be modified. Have to report that this item is now resolved, but added to the project design schedule. Second item issue was around easements. So a temporary construction easement required redesign late in the schedule, which added an additional delay to the project's right-of-way process. There was also a conflict with CWS's requirement to record easements over vegetated corridor restorations and mitigation sites, and ODOT's federal project laws that only allow the granting of easements on a federally funded project to either ODOT or to the agency they're partnering with, in this case, the City of Tigard. So the path forward, what's the path forward? We found a path forward with CWS and ODOT for this item, and we'll be working through the easement process to complete this task. Our team is currently working out all the fine details of the project schedule, and we will be providing a memo to council with more details soon. We'll likely have these details tied down by the end of the week, and we'll follow up with the mentioned memo and obviously also keeping the public informed about this process shortly thereafter. So that's an update from the public comment. A fun fact that our Assistant City Manager Nyland asked that I pass along. And first, I should say today is National Voter Registration Day, and kudos to Councilor Nog for a short video that she produced, encouraging people to register to vote. But later this evening, you'll receive a briefing about the Q1 supplemental. You'll see the majority of those items are carried forward, many attributed to delays due to supply chain issues. The global supply chain shortage has caused disruption, as you've probably heard, in the last few months, and will be continuing, most likely, probably impacting our holidays. So with that said, fires and droughts have also contributed to the anticipated shortage with live Christmas trees, and deliveries of artificial trees may be delayed due to the aforementioned supply issues. So with that said, Mayor, Councilor, only 88 days till Christmas. So be thinking about your Christmas trees and presents for your loved ones. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Wyatt, quick question. Is there going to be a written response that goes back to former Mayor Dirksen? He had submitted his question, and I hope he doesn't spend his Tuesdays still watching all of our city council meetings. So my hope would be that response, I haven't seen it go back to him. So can you just make sure that gets back to him in written form?
We will make sure that happens. And as he told me in the interview, he does not spend Tuesday night watching council meetings. So you are correct in that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to written public comment. City Recorder Krager, I don't believe we received any written public comment. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Now it's time for phone-in public comment. Anyone that wants to speak can do so. Again, the phone number is 503-966-4101. Mr. Nolip, do we have any callers in the queue?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, there are no callers in the queue.
All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda for both the Tigard City Council and the Local Contract Review Board. The consent agenda is used for routine items, including minutes and approval of contracts or intergovernmental agreements. Information on each item is available on the city's website in the packet for this meeting. These items may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Council members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. We have for the Local Contract Review Board tonight, a contract award for a water recycler vehicle, and also for a contract award for Fruing Street sidewalk infill with a community development block grant. Those are the two items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion or questions?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Counselor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Counselor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube,
Yes.
Counselor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes. All right, the motion's adopted unanimously. We'll move on to item number 4, which is to proclaim October Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Chief McAlpine.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Chief Kathy McAlpine. Rather than hear from me tonight on a very important proclamation, I've asked two of our valued stakeholders and partners to maybe say a few words that we don't often get to hear from them. The first you'll hear is from Amanda Burnett from the Domestic Violence Resource Center, and that'll be followed up by Tristan Irvin from the Family Justice Center. So Amanda, if you're on, would you please go ahead?
Hello, I'm Amanda Burnett. I'm the Housing Director for the Domestic Violence Resource Center. I'm here to say that each October, we gather to honor survivors of domestic violence and the advocates who support them on their journeys. Ending domestic violence requires the leadership of survivors, the support of community members, and the collaborative efforts of law enforcement and municipal leaders. I'm here on behalf of the Domestic Violence Resource Center of Washington County to say thank you to the city and people of Tigard for standing with survivors during the Domestic Violence Awareness Month and throughout the year. Thank you for making a difference in the lives of survivors.
Thank you.
Tristan, go ahead.
Perfect. Well, and I'm coming to you from not my normal location, so my camera might turn off, so I apologize. My name is Tristan Irvin, and I have been honored to serve on the board of directors for the Family Justice Center for a couple of years now, and sort of be the Tigard rep for that. I really appreciate Mayor Snyder, the city councilors, the city of Tigard for really making this domestic violence month a priority and showing support. The Family Justice Center of Washington County appreciates the ongoing support the city of Tigard provides every year. It makes a huge difference in our communities. The city's financial support and also the strong support from Chief Kathy Alpine have allowed us to continue to provide quality services to victims and families of domestic violence. One really exciting piece to share is that we have been allocated some state funding to expand our footprint and bring in CARES Northwest, which is a child abuse center, into a home here in Washington County. They are currently located in Multnomah County and are serving a very large number of children from Washington County. So they will continue to provide services in Multnomah County, as well as have a location here within the FJC to service child abuse victims and families from our county and in one location. So that's been a really exciting thing to have kind of on the docket and coming up. And again, I really appreciate all of the support that Tigard gives to the Family Justice Center.
Thank you, Tristan. Chief, is there anything further that that you want to add?
No, I think both of these women have said it best. And again, I just thank them for their diligence and working in this important effort. And again, back to the council for recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Tristan. Good to see you both and appreciate your support. Council, is there someone that would like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve proclaiming October Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
I'll second that. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote, starting with Youth Councilor Nog for an advisory vote.
Youth Councilor Nog,
Yes.
Councilor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Okay. Motion's adopted unanimously. The Tigard City Council has proclaimed Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you to our guests. And we'll move on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is to receive Tigard Public Library Strategic Plan Update presentation. Director Bernard.
Good evening, Mayor Snyder and City Council, Tigard community, and city teammates. My name is Halstead Bernard. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the director of the Tigard Public Library. I'm here tonight with Amber Bell, Reader Services Manager of the library, to introduce our new library strategic plan to you. Before I turn this over to Amber, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the unique opportunity that the past 18 months have given us. When we had to reconsider and reimagine how we delivered all library services in the midst of a global pandemic, we were able to reflect on what our community values most and gather feedback on how our community wants us to grow. And so we're so excited to share this new vision and strategic plan with you today. We're looking forward to your questions and comments at the end. Take it away, Amber. I think Amber might be having some connection issues. Are you there?
Can you all hear me now? Okay. Hi, everybody. Apologies.
We just lost you again.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. I hope I hope you can continue to hear me. I apologize for my internet issues. And thank you for having me. My name's Amber Bell. I'm the Reader Services Manager. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. And I can't wait to tell you about the new strategic plan for the Tigard Public Library. I'm going to share my screen.
Amber, could I suggest for your internet connectivity that you turn your, we'd love to see your face, but I'm going to suggest you turn your video off to boost your audio.
Yeah, I will do that. Thank you. Okay, it should be off now. Can you hear me still?
We can.
Okay, let's see what I can do. I'm here to talk about the new Tigard Public Library strategic plan. I'll tell you about its vision and the 3 priorities, and give you an overview of the objectives within those priority areas. I'll highlight a couple of the specific actions that we plan on accomplishing during the strategic plan, and I'll also tell you a little bit about the measurement and reporting that we plan to do. So our vision for the strategic plan aligns with the city strategic plan, both in structure and in parallel content. And it also aligns pretty well with the 5 E's of our community promise that I know we're all focusing on right now. It's a 5-year plan, as I mentioned, and the vision for this plan, as you can see, is a community hub for knowledge and enrichment where everyone feels welcome. The 3 priority areas focus on aspects of the vision: community, knowledge, and enrichment. And I will tell you a little bit about those objectives and and a few of the specific actions within those objectives. But before highlighting aspects of the plan, I want to tell you a little bit about the process. Our process for creating the plan included a lot of engagement from individuals, from library teammates, and from community organizations. Overall, we received input from over 1,100 people through written surveys, through conversations, and also through reviews of the final draft of the plan. The process took about 6 months. We did this during the pandemic, and that process really helped create a plan that's tied closely to work that both the community and the library teammates care about and can easily participate in. It was a really great process to participate in, and I was delighted with it. There's a real big focus on equity and access in this plan. We really are focusing on making sure that we are bridging the gap to resources for all community members, especially to those who have been marginalized or historically underserved. So the first priority is community. Objectives that I'm going to tell you about. The first is about indoor and outdoor spaces. There's a lot of focus on updating spaces within the library and also focusing on outdoor spaces in the library. One great example of this is the library backyard project that you probably have already seen some of the design work for. We're really excited that we have been getting to partner with Public Works on this project, and it's built into our strategic plan to enhance outdoor spaces, to extend learning, play, and community engagement beyond the library building. Customer service is another focus in this community priority. And one of the actions in that is to provide training and support that allows library team members to make empowered decisions that improve the customer service experience. As you might notice, that definitely aligns with the city's strategic plan. And that is, I'm pretty excited about that. Also, part of this priority is to update policies. That's work we're already doing and have been doing for the last few months since the plan got put into action. And we're reviewing and updating policies specifically with an anti-racist approach. One example is that currently we are updating the collection development policy. And with an eye for both intellectual freedom, which is the idea that everyone has access to all the reading material that they might be interested in, as well as balancing it with the current equity standards. For instance, to build in some criteria that is about prevention of harm to marginalized populations. The second priority is knowledge. And a few examples of actions within this priority are access to materials. There's a lot built into this priority that is about inclusive displays. An example of that is in the last month or two, there was a mental health month display on the second floor. We're doing some work to really highlight high interest items and really make sure that patrons have really easy access to things that they can just grab and be able to read as soon as they see it. For instance, we have new featured item displays on the first floor in our welcome area. Professional development is another part of the knowledge priority, and that again aligns with the city strategic plan, specifically for providing equity-focused trainings. In the last year, there have been a lot of equity-focused trainings that library teammates have pursued through webinars and through Oregon Library Association, and we plan to continue to provide both library-wide and support for individuals to pursue more equity-focused trainings. We also plan to support opportunities for career advancement that strengthen the library professional field. And a couple of examples of this would be really thinking about interns. There's an inclusive internship project that really focuses on teenagers that we hope to incorporate as soon as we can incorporate more and more volunteers and opportunities like that, and also more cross-training between divisions so that people have the opportunity to develop in the parts of library work that they're interested in. And then one of the things that, of course, we're all focused on is bridging the digital divide. And I know you all are focused on it as well because it aligns closely with council goals, especially goal 2, objective 2. And one example of what that looks right now is the circulating laptop project that we're working on, in order to provide laptops that people can actually check out and take home that are paired with Wi-Fi hotspots, so that people who don't have access to technology at home have that access. And we are also working on building into that some specific, easy, sort of very quick and easy training so that someone would know what to do with that technology when they have it, as well as programming in the library that allows for that training in an easy way. Let's see. Priority 3 is enrichment, that the library enriches the lives of community members. And a couple of examples within this third priority is support for students and job seekers, a gigantic project that we are also already in the process of that we are excited about. Is we are working in partnership both with WCCLS, which is the countywide library system, and TTSD to get WCCLS student library cards to every student in the TTSD school district. It's a huge project, and it's 5,000 to 6,000 cards that we hope to provide for students that don't already have them. And it's going really well, and we're looking forward to that. Events is another great example here, and one of the actions within this events objective is providing culturally responsive programs and collaborating with new parts of the Tigard community. For instance, building our programming for the Latinx community and the Pacific Islander community in Tigard. And finally, outreach. Outreach can look lots of ways, and we already do outreach, but we also have built into our plan looking for new opportunities to bring library resources to those who can't get to the library. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we plan to implement the plan. So we all, there's a lot of things we're already doing. It's a 5-year plan, so we can't do it all this year. We're looking forward to spreading out some of our work and building on the work we're doing now in order to see it all come to fruition, but not all at once, obviously. And as we implement the plan, you will be able to see some of the reporting that we'll be doing. You can look for it in library reports and publications, in our e-newsletters, in our reports that we pass along in order to come to admin reports for you. It will be in the budget narrative that you will see. And of course, we will highlight the work we're doing in the city report card. We'll be highlighting progress, we'll be celebrating successes, and we'll be sharing what comes next with the community. So to wrap it up, the outcomes of the plan will support the community and further both the library and the city's vision to be a community hub for knowledge and enrichment where everyone feels welcome, and our citywide vision to be an equitable community that is walkable, healthy, and accessible for everyone. Does anybody have any questions for me or for Halstead?
All right, we'll double check on that. I saw Council President Lube shook her head no. Councillor Shaw, any questions or comments?
No, just appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Youth Councillor Nog, anything?
I have a comment. I really appreciate the stickers provided by the library for the month. They look amazing.
That's great.
Councillor Newton?
No, thanks for that great report.
And Councillor Goodhouse?
No, thank you.
All right, well, thank you. It's very exciting to see where this work is progressing, and it really resonated with me as I listened and heard it. So thank you for that great work, and I think it'll resonate with most of our community. So that is partly what we're here for. Director Bernard, is there anything further on this point? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Nothing further. Thank you so much for your attention and your comments tonight. And we're looking forward to celebrating more library successes with you in the future.
All right. Thank you both. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a public hearing to consider resolution approving the fiscal year 2022 first quarter budget supplemental. I will open the public hearing. Anyone that wishes to testify may do so by calling on the phone and getting into the queue now. Call 503-966-4101. Senior Management Analyst Kang, staff report, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. My name is Steve Kang, Senior Management Analyst from Finance and Information Services. Tonight, I'm here to present the fiscal year 2022 first quarter budget supplemental. The agenda item summary should include detailed descriptions and the financial impact. In this presentation, I'll provide the descriptions of the key items and impact to the city's operations. The Q1 supplemental budget consists of primarily carry-forwards of prior year's appropriations, but does include some new requests as well. First is the carry-forwards and technical adjustments. Total carry-forwards in operations is roughly about $846,000, $99,000 from community development, $334,000 from finance and information services, $207,000 from police, $205,000 from public works operations. The items are outlined as shown in this presentation. Most of the carry-forwards are driven by supply chain constraints, including chip shortages and unforeseen events caused by COVID-19 pandemic. We anticipate these constraints to continue in the foreseeable future. Capital Improvement Plan. It is notable that all of the CIP requests are carry-forwards, and there are no new requests in this supplemental budget. Similar to operations, a lot of the requests are due to COVID-19 related constraints. 5 CIP systems are impacted: $25,000 in facilities, $233,000 in parks, $28,000 in stormwater, $228,000 in transportations, and $36,000 in water. Now the new items. So Q1 supplemental budget includes a total of 5 new requests. 2 requests are from city management. First one is for the Nova Consulting Group to assist in selecting the new finance director and the second assistant city manager positions. The second request is from the city management for consulting services to conduct a high-level organizational assessment of finance and information services functions, recommend internal service funds and methodologies, provide financial management advice to the finance team, managers, and elected officials, support implementation of the Tyler ERP system, provide advice on debt issuance and administration, and review the city's latest long-range general fund financial forecast. Community development is requesting a budget appropriation to launch a mobile business incubator. Majority of the funding will come in the form of grants from Washington County and AARP. Remainder of the funding will come from the city's ARPA allocation. The requested funding will outfit 2 business mobile incubators. The mobile pod is a mobile business incubator that creates a low barrier to entry starting point from which food and beverage entrepreneurs can launch a business in Tigard. Entrepreneurs for this business incubator will be recruited from the city's network of business advising partners focused on serving business owners from historically underserved and marginalized populations. Next is Finance and Information Services, which is for the Verizon Connect fleet management system. The system will help automate manual processes like preventive maintenance, Tyler integration, fleet usage, safety, risk management, carbon footprint reporting, and data-informed fleet management decisions. This request will be an ongoing annual cost for all city vehicles with Verizon Connect. Lastly, police is requesting a replacement of the patrol vehicle. In July, an officer discovered the patrol vehicle was damaged on the passenger side of the front door where the vehicle molding was displaced. The corresponding damage that caused the displaced molding was very low on the vehicle, not noticeable during the daily inspections. The PD completed a due diligence investigation to determine causal factors. However, no operator knew of an incident where the damage occurred. Other inspection process also revealed no further information about a date, time, or location for this significant damage. Fleet determined that the damage was severe enough that the vehicle would need to be removed from service and replaced. This request will be largely funded by insurance payment and sale of a damaged patrol vehicle through an auction. Overall, the fiscal year 2022 first quarter's supplemental will increase the budget by $1.8 million. The additional appropriation will be supported by grants, unanticipated beginning fund balances, and contingency. This supplemental will not change the city's reserves. That's the end of the prepared presentation, and the recommendation is the approval of the resolution implementing the first quarter budget supplemental. With that, we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, council, who's got questions or comments? Anybody? Youth Councilor Nog?
I had a question. When it comes to replacing vehicles and looking into buying new vehicles in the future for city, I was wondering if there would be any consideration when it comes to buying eco-friendly vehicles or vehicles with reduced carbon footprints.
Thank you, Youth Councilor Nog. I can take that one. Absolutely, I think is the answer there. Part of it will be part of our community and climate resiliency planning. I think it'll come through that, as well as potentially some parallel analysis that we do during the development of that. So don't have specifics now, but absolutely, it's something we're talking about in regards to police fleet, where it's appropriate in all of our fleet for public works, parks, and other vehicles that we have. Thanks for asking that question.
Councillor Shaw?
Yes, and Youth Councilor Nog stole my thunder. I was going to actually ask about the same thing with regards to electric vehicles and consideration with regards to the replacement vehicle. So thank you, City Manager Reimer, for that response.
Other comments or questions or a motion?
I'll just add that, I think, my questions were answered earlier, and so it's not that I don't have questions or comments. I'm just ready to move forward. So with that, I'll move to approve resolution number 21-35.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 21-35, a resolution to adopt a fiscal year 2022 first quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to public works, policy and administration, and community services.
And I'm realizing right now, I don't usually do this, but I realize we're in the middle of a public hearing and I've missed some important steps. So we're going to take a step back on the motion for a moment. It is still on the table. We may need to modify that. Mr. Nullup, are there any callers in the queue to make public comment on the phone?
Mr. Mayor, no callers in the queue.
All right. And City Recorder Krager, we didn't have any written comment that I saw, did we?
No, we had none.
Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. And why don't we remake, just for procedural reasons, let's remake the motion in second, please.
Sure. I move to approve resolution number 21-35.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? And City Recorder, the number and title of the resolution again.
Resolution number 21-35. A resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2022 first quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to public works, policy and administration, and community services.
And City Recorder, a roll call vote, please.
All right, and does this include Youth Councilor Nog?
It does not.
It does not, okay. Just wanted to verify. Councilor Goodhouse? Counselor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Counselor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube,
Yes.
Counselor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Okay, resolution number 21-35 is adopted unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
just wanted to thank Mr. King for the thorough report. I appreciated it. Thank you very much, Mr. King.
All right, excellent call out. Thank you. All right, we are now going to convene as the Town Center Development Agency for the following item, and that is a public hearing to consider a resolution approving the first quarter TCDA budget supplemental. I will open the public hearing. Anyone that wishes to testify may do so by calling on the phone and getting in the queue at 503-966-4101. Senior Management Analyst Kang, staff report.
Good evening, TCD Chair and board members. Again, my name is Steve Kang from Finance and Information Services, and this time I'm here to present the fiscal year 2022 first quarter supplemental budget for TCDA. TCDA has two items, and both of these are carryforwards. First is the carryforward of $61,000 in unspent funds from 2021 TCDA budget for TIF improvement program and to fund 3 matching grants for facade and tenant improvements. Some of these delays were due to COVID-19. Second is for the CIP 92059 Universal Plaza. The request is a carryforward of $138,000 from prior appropriations impacting Parks SDC Fund and Urban Renewal Capital Improvement Fund. This is due to construction timing. The supplemental will increase the TCDA budget by $199,000. The increase in expenditure is supported by unanticipated beginning fund balance. The supplemental will not change the reserves of the TCDA. Finance is recommending the approval of resolution implementing the first quarter supplemental. Now, if you have any questions, we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kang, thank you. We'll go to public testimony first, make sure I stay in line with the process here. I don't believe there was any written public comment. Is that correct, City Recorder Kreger?
That's correct.
Mr. Nolip, are there any callers in the queue?
Mr. Mayor, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. I will close the public hearing. Council consideration of TCDA resolution number 21-07. Questions or comments for Mr. King? Or a motion?
I move to approve TCDA resolution number 21-07.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
TCDA resolution number 21-07, a resolution to adopt a fiscal year 2022 first quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to Town Center Development Agency, Urban Development.
And City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote, again, not including Youth Councilor Nog at this time.
Director Goodhouse.
Yes.
Director Newton.
Yes.
Director Lube.
Yes.
Director Shaw.
Yes.
Chair Snyder.
Yes. All right, TCDA resolution 21-07 is adopted unanimously. And we'll reconvene as the City Council for the following items. Next item on the agenda is to receive a Washington County Land Use and Transportation briefing on Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, MSTIP. I do want to alert the council to pay particular attention to this discussion. This is going to be perhaps your one and only opportunity to provide input on the methodology that may be used by the county for the next many years of the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program. I've already, I think, heard this either same or very similar presentation at the Washington County Coordinating Committee. So I just want to alert you to pay attention, particularly from my perspective, about the changes potentially in methodology for use of these resources. And I think we have Senior Planner Roth. You're going to introduce your guests and the item.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Snyder and Council. I'm Dave Roth, Senior Transportation Planner. Tonight, I'm here to introduce staff from Washington County who will be sharing a presentation on the next Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program funding allocation cycle. First, I'd like to recognize Joe Wisnowski, our city engineer, who's also joining me tonight. Joe and I are available to answer any questions that you may have of city staff. So moving on, from Washington County, we have Aaron Wardell, Principal Planner, and Chris Defebach, Senior Policy Analyst, joining us tonight to share their presentation.
Thank you. And do you have the slides?
I think I was going to present them so I can start sharing while you get started, Chris.
Okay, well, I just want to first express our appreciation for sharing time on your agenda with us tonight. We have been visiting with the different city councils, and I have to say we have found the comments, the questions, the input so helpful as we continue, as we start to kick off this next funding allocation process. So first of all, I just want to remind you that the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program is really important for our county, and it has been a board priority. And it has been really helpful in helping meet our needs as the county has grown over the last decades. And so what we'd really like to do today is share our Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program background. Not everybody who is here now was here in 1986 when the program got started. So we're finding it's really helpful to give a little bit of a short history, and then share the work program for the funding allocation work plan. And then we have some questions for you overall about what you'd like to see in terms of priorities, input on the engagement approach, and eligibility outcomes, how we approach this process. So next slide. So first of all, I want to be clear about where the MISTIP funding allocation fits into the overall process. Of course, all our projects start with full public input and review and process that ranks them and includes them by city councils like you into a transportation system plan or active transportation plan or other process. So projects that are considered for funding have already been identified and identified support known. The process that we'll be talking about is this red and blue box in the middle, where we will allocate the revenue that we anticipate getting for 5 years between 2023 and 2028. And then it's basically keeping the pipeline going so that we can identify projects for funding now that will be in the queue for the next phases, which are the detailed project design and of course then construction. So just a little bit more about the Major Streets Transportation Program. It's been a pay-as-you-go approach. It is based on countywide dedicating countywide property taxes to improve our roads. Since the project started, the program has funded over 150 projects with more than $900 million, and that's not cost indexed, so it's even more than that in today's dollars. The projects have been allocated in 5-year funding cycles like the one we're starting now. And throughout, from the beginning of this process, the investments, the projects have been recommended by the Washington County Coordinating Committee and then forwarded with those recommendations for approval by the Board of Commissioners. And I just want to emphasize the strong partnership between the cities and the role of the Washington County Coordinating Committee in the process of identifying, prioritizing the the improvements for funding. Next slide. So again, just a little bit dive back into history. The Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program began with a serial levy in 1986, which was then renewed twice more before the levy rate was folded into the county's property tax rate in 1997. And since then, since 97, the county commissioners have approved funding, dedicated the funding for 4 cycles, B, C, D, E, B, C, D, E cycles, and they weren't named very creatively, I have to confess. And we are now on to what would be 3F, the next cycle, to identify the funding allocations for approximately 2023 and 2028. And one thing I want to highlight is that that we're dedicating funding revenue to keep the project pipeline moving forward. That doesn't mean we won't finish the projects that we all have already funded that for some reason, for various reasons, have not completed their construction. So we're still underway with completing projects that were allocated in the past cycle. So just to give you a frame for how much revenue we're talking about in our last cycle, which was intended to dedicate the revenue generated between 2018 and 2023. The program allocated $175 million for about $35 million a year is the revenue that was estimated. And in the last cycle, there was $160 million dedicated for 23 multimodal road projects. And then $7.5 million set aside for what we call an opportunity fund. And this has been very successful. This fund is used for cities and counties to use as local match for competitive grants. So with this program, we have been able to for each dollar in this opportunity fund, we have been able to generate $5 to $6. So it's a very good return. And this amount was bumped up. It used to be 5 million. It was bumped up in the last cycle to 7.5 million. And it has been very successful. We also have a set aside, and this has been really since the beginning of the program, some set aside for rural bridges. So there's a set aside for that. And then $500,000 for the intelligent transportation system. And these funds are used to match regional funds for traffic control improvements across the county. Next slide. So again, I mentioned the total 150 projects or so. Here is a map that just shows in yellow where those projects have been, and you can see the geographic scope has covered across the whole county. We often get questions about how this overlays with some of our historically marginalized communities, and you can see in the blue and gray shades locations for residents of people of color, limited English proficiency, and low income. And you can see that the projects have made improvements in all of these communities. And we know that this isn't the whole story, and Erin's going to talk more about how we consider equity, or how we're proposing to consider some of these equity considerations in our next cycle. And we also know that where people live isn't everything, it's where there are jobs as well. And we know there are a lot of jobs in the Tigard area. People move all around. The next slide. So this is, I'm sure you'll recognize this. This is the area of the city of Tigard, and it shows in the yellow lines some of the key roads that have been put in place over the lifetime of the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program. And I think you'll recognize many of these with Shoals, Walnut Street. There's Roy Rogers on the far side. There's really quite a few. And it has been interesting to go back to the history of MSTIP. And from the get-go, it was always the intent that these are not sort of very local projects. They're projects that benefit more than one jurisdiction. And you can see with these connections that have been made across the county, the role that the projects have played in really developing that major street system that to support the growth in the county. I believe I'm going to turn it over to Erin Wardell now, who will walk through the major steps in this next cycle of the funding allocation and go over some more questions for you.
Thank you, Chris. So we anticipate that this project will take a little bit over a year. The timeline on here is a little bit behind where we think we'll actually end up now. But we're here in the summer, now the fall of 2021. We've confirmed our work program with the board. They did that at their business meeting last week. We are working on developing our equity framework and the public engagement plan that we'll use to go forward. And I'll talk more about public engagement in a later slide. Our second milestone will be to go out to the community, the broad community of Washington County, and ask for their input on the values that we should use as we establish the criteria for this program. We will be identifying eligibility criteria and the evaluation metrics that we'll use to evaluate projects once they're submitted, and then we'll be initiating the project solicitation. Milestone 3 will be to evaluate the projects that we've received, identify the programmatic elements that will be a part of the next cycle. The programmatic elements are what Chris talked about in a previous slide, the Misstep Opportunity Fund, rural bridges, and intelligent transportation systems. So we'll be confirming that those are the right programs to have and the right dollar amounts in each of those buckets. We will then be going into our second phase of big public comment, which is asking people what they think of the prioritized project list and the programmatic elements. And then our final milestone, which we think will actually take place in the fall now, will be board adoption. And when the board adopts the MISTIP program, they'll be adopting the funded project list, the programmatic elements, and they'll also be adopting updated administrative procedures. So as we go through this process, these are the 4 big milestones, but we'll be having about monthly check-ins with the Washington County Coordinating Committee, as well as with the transportation staff who advise the Coordinating Committee, and then with the Board of Commissioners. And sometimes that will be an update on where we're at, just a status update, and sometimes that will be an action item for them to give us authorization to move forward with the next step. So the past eligibility criteria that we used for the last couple of cycles of the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program were that the projects needed to meet a multimodal need. They needed to be located on a roadway of countywide significance, and I'll talk more about that in the next slide. They needed to rank as a high local priority, which generally means this is a project that's adopted into a plan document. And the projects overall need to be geographically and financially balanced. Chris showed the graphic that shows the history of the MISTIP program and how we've spread the funds throughout the county. That's always been an important tenet of the program, and then financially balanced as well. This slide shows the system of countywide interest. This is a map that was created through working with the County Coordinating Committee, I think back in 2007 originally, and then it was updated in 2016. And the purpose of this map is to show all of the arterials in the county, so our biggest roads basically, and then also to show some of the collectors, which is the next class down, that are determined to serve more of a regional or multi-jurisdiction or important connection function. So one of the first things we'll be doing, and actually we'll be talking about this with the transportation planners from the cities and county on Thursday, is to review this map and then make sure that it's still accurate. If there have been transportation system plan updates that we need to reflect in this map, then this is our opportunity to do that. So this is an important first piece of the work we're doing. So the proposed outcomes for the program is one of the first things we'll be taking out to the public to weigh in on. And these draft outcomes come from the county's transportation system plan, and then we've added in equity as one of these overarching outcomes as well. So we have equity, safety, economic vitality, livability, and natural environment. So our questions for the public will revolve around what these mean to them and then what these mean for transportation projects. So that will be our first check-in point. And this next slide talks a little bit more about how we intend to do that community engagement. We are hiring an engagement consultant as a staff extension, recognizing that we don't have the expertise in-house to do this, particularly if we're doing targeted engagement with historically excluded communities. We'll have these two phases of broad public engagement. The first is checking in on those outcomes and asking people what's important to them in the transportation system, and then tell us which projects people like best. And that will go out when we have our prioritized projects and program list. We'd like to be able to work through established organizations and committees as much as possible. We know that a number of cities already have dedicated community outreach and equity and engagement staff. And so we'd be looking for partnership in that and how we work through existing groups and the relationships that have already been developed in your city. So with that, we can move into the questions that we have for you. And of course, we're here to answer any other questions you have as well, but these are the starter questions. What are your priorities for the future MSTIP funding allocation? What are your thoughts on our proposed approach and on the draft outcomes? Do you have any feedback on the community engagement that we've laid out? Do you have any questions about the process? And is there anyone else who you recommend that we check in with as we're in this early phase of the work? And with that, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see everybody, and we're open for questions.
Thank you, Erin. And Chris, appreciate the presentation, and I anticipate we'll have a number of questions and feedback. Do you, I'm almost wondering if we should have you put your question slide back up on the screen, unless everybody can access that quickly. Your questions and feedback. And members of council, who would like to go first? Councilor Goodhouse.
Yeah, thank you. Part of the funding, and one of the things I'd like to see going forward, or thoughts. I know in the past it's been more of the money has been allocated to usually a single project or a single area. And I know there's a lot of areas throughout the city that would need the needs, where if we took and did more smaller individual projects and got more from those projects, I think that'd be helpful. It's always great to have a entire road or a road with sidewalks done, but we have a lot of gaps, a lot of areas where we need sidewalk infill projects done that can help areas. And I think if the community sees maybe 2 or 3 dozen projects being done as opposed to one being done, you see a lot more effect, and I think it'll help out a lot more areas in the city. And sometimes it's harder to get those individual funds, but that's what I'd like to see is a little bit more of those broken down into individual projects or areas that we need to take care of.
Chris, did you want, either one of you want to respond to that, or you're just in listening mode? I guess I want to give you an opportunity to.
We're in listening mode. One thing we know is that the needs are going to be greater than the resources available. So we are in listening mode now. I think the focus has been on major streets, but there are certainly gaps on major streets as well as local streets.
All right, let's go. I think Councillor Shaw was next.
Thank you, Mayor. More just a clarifying questions. In the slide, it was referenced values and that they would seek public input on the values. And was that values, is that related to the equity framework and public engagement plan, or are they separate values to something else?
More that we'd be checking in on kind of those big outcomes with the community. So what are their values in general related to the transportation system?
And I guess I would just say that in our discussion with different city councils, we hear a lot about the importance of safety, for example, the importance of supporting economic growth. So we're hearing a lot of those emerge already. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And the natural environment one we think has really evolved over time, and now it picks up a lot more climate considerations than it did when it was, when it was first adopted into our transportation system plan years ago. So those are the kinds of things we're listening for. What's important.
So something like resiliency.
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Youth Councilor Nog.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of this was talking about street planning and all that. I was wondering if there was any thought about pedestrian safety and having new roads for pedestrians as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. Generally, our projects are complete streets projects. So we've built a lot of sidewalks and bike lanes and ADA accessibility as a part of the major street transportation improvement program. It's more than just a road. It's about building streets.
Were you
Aaron,
thinking of standalone? Were you thinking of standalone pedestrian bridge, a bridge or something, that kind of thing?
No, I was just asking about sidewalks and better accessibility as well, and maybe bike lanes.
Yeah, thanks.
Aaron, I was just going to share that I'm not sure our youth city councilor knows sort of the jargon of a complete street. So would you mind just quickly, I know you kind of referenced it, but that means something really specific to you in the transportation planning world. So either you or Dave or Chris perhaps could just briefly talk through that for the benefit of our whole community.
No, absolutely.
I'll let Aaron doing it.
Thank you for that reminder too. It's important. We live with this jargon all the time, and we shouldn't do that. So complete streets are streets that include facilities for all users. So when we build a complete street, we don't just build travel lanes for cars, we build the pedestrian sidewalks and we build bike lanes as well.
Youth Councilor Nog, anything further?
That's it. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Council President Loop.
Thank you. One of the things that I'd really like to focus on is the complete streets idea and really a focus on safety. I don't live that far off of Hall Boulevard, which is, listed as an eligible arterial, and I can't walk to the library or to City Hall safely on one side of the street the entire way. And we're talking, I live within like a mile and a half. It's not far at all. And so just not only talking about building streets with the complete street philosophy, but I'd like to see programs in order to support streets that are already in place to go ahead and build the infrastructure around them for the complete street. I would prefer not to have to drive my car to the library and to be able to take my kid to go visit and pick out her books, but I can't safely get there because we don't have a complete street on Hall Boulevard. And that's just one of, many examples in Tigard's where we do have streets, but they're not with every road user or every user in mind. And that's, one of the things. I'm also a cyclist, and it's bike safety. Yes, there can be bike lanes, but it can be really scary when someone buzzes you really close. And I don't feel as safe as I used to on the road with more people just throughout the county and just being able to bike. And so just really thinking of the safety aspects for all users and the complete street. And also, if we have the pavement down there, but we don't have the rest of the street, how can we support that in order to build that stronger community so not everybody has to drive their car everywhere?
Thank you for that. MSTIP projects are oftentimes looking at streets that are missing adequate pedestrian and bicycle facilities, roads that are somewhat rural in character, don't really reflect the current users or the current needs of the facilities. And so, yeah, it's not just about building new streets, it's also retrofitting our existing transportation system.
Well, we got lots of those, so I'm excited for us to partner with you on them.
As Chris said, we know there's a lot of need out there.
I don't like to correct our city councilors in council meetings, but Councilor Lube, I don't think you can make it to the library even using both sides of the street and staying on sidewalks. I don't think. It's actually worse than even.
I mean, I'd have to go back and forth a couple of different times, but yeah, I mean, it's really, to be quite honest, it's quite ridiculous. I think the library is actually under a mile from my house.
I like the quote, quite ridiculous. Hopefully you can, Aaron, you can get that in your report.
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah, Councilor Shaw. You are still muted.
Thank you, Mary. I think by now I'd have that down. Also in the areas of Templeton Elementary School and Tuolde Middle School, there's a number of streets that do not have sidewalks, and people drive very quickly despite the city, and thanks for the mayor's initiative and lowering the speeds on some of the streets. But it really is a safety issue. There almost appear to be rural roads, but they really aren't. They're in an urban center. So if there's an opportunity for additional safety for this with sidewalks for the children, that would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Youth Councilor Nog.
I was wondering if we could add crosswalks near like parking lots of schools to make crossing safer for children as well.
Yes, also an important element of Complete Streets projects is safe crossings. Writing that down. I will mention, actually, that's a good time to bring this up. We've been working on developing an interactive mapping tool as a part of how we'll do the evaluation of projects later on in the process once they've been submitted. And that mapping tool shows us the locations of schools. It identifies Title I schools separately. It also shows us locations of healthcare facilities. We've added in other priority destinations, transit stops, delineated by transit, if it's bus transit or light rail transit, and a number of other factors in there. So that will help us when we go through the project evaluation, really looking at which projects get at the needs that we've identified in this first phase of engagement that we do.
Councilor Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report. I wanted to first put a plug in for our transportation system plan and, you know, the work that our staff's done to prioritize our projects with our community's values in mind. So yay to them for that. I would also comment along the lines of Council President Lube. As you were presenting, I was thinking about Bonita. And Bonita Road is one where the zoning changes. There's a double train crossing. There's low-income housing across Bonita from access to a park. And I'm thinking about how people that live there are living there if they have to access transit. So I'm hoping as we're looking at priorities throughout the county, we're thinking about how our community members live in those sorts of situations. And I think some of those are going to maybe, I hope, rise to higher priorities because folks are low income and have a lot of just conflicts. As Councilor Lube pointed out on Hall, Bonita isn't very well served with sidewalks either. So I just use that as an example of, I hope that's the way we're moving forward. And then I just have a quick question. Could you describe for me the economic vitality outcome? Provide a reliable transportation system that enhances the economic health of Washington County. That's kind of broad. Can you talk a little bit more about what that outcome might look like? Thanks.
Yeah, I can. So that language comes directly from Washington County's Transportation System Plan, and it is intended to be somewhat broad. It's an economic development metric for us. And so one of the things we'll be doing with the technical staff from the city, so Dave and Joe will be helping us with this, is figure out how can you translate an outcome like that into some way you can actually measure a project. So for something like that, it could be access to jobs. You know, would this project open up access to jobs that people need to get to in the community? So that's just an example of how that can translate.
And I guess
So
I would
you
just say, we have seen that, like, we've seen, you know, a new road like 124th, for example, that road was built and immediately we saw new development there. And for one example, other examples are in communities, you know, within more urban areas. There's investments that can also generate new businesses. So we've seen a mix.
So that might, when you get to really measuring that, it might be somewhat community to community because of the existing infrastructure. Is that correct? So it might look a little different when you're measuring that outcome. It might be access to transport, like access to a bus to get you to a job, or might be actually opening up land for development that would provide jobs. So is that kind of what you're saying? It's just going to depend on the individual situation and the economic outcome that you would define that way? Is that what you're saying?
It could definitely be interpreted in both ways.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions or comments? And Aaron and Chris, do you feel like you're getting enough feedback? I know you've already gotten my feedback at WCCC, so I'm not going to go through all that again. But or Dave or Joe, do you have anything you want to highlight or point out?
I see Councilor Goodhouse's hand just went up. Maybe he should ask a question first.
Well, I was going to go there, but do you and Joe, I mean, if you and Joe don't have anything to add, that's fine.
No, I mean, this is a great conversation tonight, and it's in line with the conversations we've already been having at the staff level. And then I think it was already pointed out that we are actively working on the TSP update right now, which will be wrapping up in January. So we will have a set of fresh community priorities and potential projects to think about for this next round of MISTIP funding. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, Councilor Goodhouse.
Yes, I was just going to ask about the feedback or community engagement. I know that we regularly get citizens that write in about different areas or so forth. I know that with sidewalks, we do have a shelved sidewalk gap kind of analysis that shows where there's a lot of the gaps on major roads. And I know that with the city, for the last couple of years, we've done more of a GIS system where people can kind of report in problems and so forth. I didn't know if there's going to be maybe an Engage website or something like that where people can point out examples or show pictures of areas where they see that they can't walk or so forth. I know it really helps. You might list an area and show it, but you can compare one area where maybe at least there's 4 feet to walk as opposed to maybe one area where there's only 6 inches. And so if residents or citizens can upload images to a site or have some kind of an interactive site that shows where they want to see improvements or what they want done, that would be, I think, maybe a kind of a valuable source to go with the technology. When this, MSTIP originally was created, there was no uploading an internet websites and cell phones where you could take pictures and all those things. So I think a way to really get the citizens engaged and get more feedback is to see areas and what they want and visually be able to have them upload it.
Chris and Aaron, if you have questions about that, Councilor Goodhouse is speaking about a specific approach that our communications team has used for large projects for community input. I'm sure Dave and Joe could get you hooked up with more info about that if you're wanting some specifics or to see what that looks like in action. In fact, Dave's probably either using it or has used it for our transportation system plan, if I had to guess.
We've got some great tools we've been using on the Engage site. A lot of cool technology out there right now.
Yeah, well, that is interesting. Yeah, I think we'd be interested in seeing that. I guess that would be one question that I would have for you is, it's in the question of anyone else you'd recommend we check in with. I think we've all been to your transportation committee. I know you have other committees within the city, so we would be asking for your help in helping us get the word out about participating in the outreach that we have. So that's something we can follow up with Dave and Joe later with as well.
Councilor Newton.
Yeah, I guess I would put in a plug for the committee for the Community Engagement Committee. That's their job to help us do effective engagement and come up with ideas to help us do that effectively. And they are rolling out a new program where they're going to some of the members are going to start taking more responsibility for outreach, those that are interested. So you might be able to get some of them to get out in the community and get some feedback. So I would contact, I think it's going to be Nicole Hendricks in the city manager's office, who's going to be the liaison. So yeah, so I would strongly suggest you connect with them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilor Goodhouse, you were trying to interject a moment ago.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up with the kind of the comment that was made as far as how to reach or who else were the groups. And I think the groups are great, but I think really the community members and people that are busy, if there's a way we can tie into the city's social media and have an easy app or source that people can easily text in, reply in. Surveys by email or surveys by paper don't necessarily work, but if there's a way that someone can click on a link with an app and take some pictures and respond real quick what they see in their areas, I think would be a beneficial way to really do that.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. In line with Councillor Newton, I too would recommend either reaching out or meeting with the Community Houselessness Assessment Resource Team, otherwise known as CHART. Police Chief McAlpine, as well as Library Director Bernard and Assistant City Manager Kathy Nyland are working on that. So one of us could certainly help you, but I think it'd be helpful to know how we can connect people in various cities within the county who will need to get to services and need resources. Thank you.
Thanks.
I would add that to the extent that you're talking about things around schools and multimodal transportation and the kinds of things that Youth Councillor Nog expressed interest to, we have an entire group of students in our Youth Advisory Council that are just like Youth Councillor Nog, and you may very well want to engage there as well.
Great.
All right. Thank you to our guests. Very robust conversation. I hope we gave you the kind of feedback you're looking for. And
Yes.
Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, and we appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and you'll be seeing us again, I'm sure, throughout this process.
All right. Thank you
Thank you.
both.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night.
All right. We'll move on. We have no non-agenda items. City Manager Reimer, administrative report.
Absolutely. Well, good evening again, Mayor, councilors, members of the community, and my teammates that are on today. I want to start by thanking Kent Wyatt and the communications team, as well as many other teammates throughout the organization. For several months, as we've informed you, we've been working on a new and improved website. And so we are in the final phases of that, about the final month, and we are aiming for a November 1 launch date. So very much focused on our community and the services we provide rather than departments that we have. And so there'll be many good tools. I'll provide some additional information to you. And as we go live, it may be best for us to even demonstrate some of the tools that we have for our community. And so we will work with them. But I want to say thanks to Kent again and others for that. Just a few other updates is excitedly, we have joined with the American Water Works Association in celebrating the first ever Source Water Protection Week, right in line with one of your 5Es, the environment. And the inaugural event is in place now from September 26th through October 2nd. And we're really talking and raising awareness about the importance of the Clackamas River as our focus this year. So kudos to the team for partnering up with AWA on that important effort. Our Park and Rec team is continuing the partnership theme here and is partnering with Tuolumne Middle School in their after-school program to host a soccer class. There's 25 youth that are part of this, and it's my understanding that we reached capacity in one day, so kind of like a concert once again. The tickets went on sale and were sold out immediately. So kudos to the team and partnering with our partners over at the school district. We also have our pumpkin scavenger hunt that is kicking off Friday. This will be our second scavenger hunt. Last year's was extremely successful, where we had over 400 people participate, and we're looking forward to another great participation this year. We've talked about the Tiger Maid program, Maintain, Advance, and Diversify Your Employment Lands. Hope was here about a month ago talking about that. We will be sending mailers out to businesses this week, inviting them to attend a series of town hall meetings with us. They will be available in both English and Spanish, and that will really be focused on those potential changes to the zoning that we talked about in the past. So this is a critical step in that process. The council just spent time with our colleagues at the county talking about ways to get community engagement and participation, and we'll be following many of those same things here as we engage with those that their lands could be impacted by this. We want to make sure that they're aware of it and provide us input as how we move forward. ODOT is also seeking feedback on some pedestrian bicycle projects. That was a conversation obviously we just had as well. They're looking for, one of the Tigard projects is on our Safe Routes to School, and it's fill in some sidewalk gaps along Hall Boulevard. One is at Hemlock to Oak, and improve a crossing at Locust. These upgrades would then provide safer access for children around Metzger Elementary School, which would be a great improvement in our community. So we're working on ways of making sure that ODOT gets the support that they need in that. A couple other things, teens can experience some relaxation and restoration when they register for our Stretch and Stuff yoga class at the library. The first 20 teens to register will receive a free yoga mat and props. So get the teens engaged in that. Another great program there. Another great program at the library is our story time in the backyard. That will continue into October. To my understanding that all of our sessions in September were full to capacity. And so we're hoping for the same thing here in October, weather permitting, obviously, as the weather starts to change. Our availability and ability to do that may change a little. And last two items is we've talked at great lengths about Tyler, and we'll be bringing another update to you in the near future. But since October of 2020, so basically a 12-month cycle now, we've invested almost 9,000 hours of teammate time in that. And so it's a significant transition, but it's investment of time that's going to pay dividends as we move forward, making sure that we set it up right. And as importantly, that we're trained to utilize the new tool that we're going to have. And I want to say congrats to Samantha Rico. You've met Samantha during our water rates conversation. She did a great job in the final presentation. We nominated her for the Northwest Women's Leadership Academy, and she was accepted into this year's cohort that begins in the coming week. So kudos to Samantha for that. It's going to be great. And one more of our leaders and future leader showing the little region how great Tigard teammates are. And with that, that concludes my remarks, and thanks for a great council meeting.
Thank you, City Manager Reimer. We do not have an executive session scheduled. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Councillor Goodhouse,
Yes.
Councillor Newton, Councillor Newton,
She put a thumbs up. I don't know that she can get off mute right now.
all right. Council President Lube,
Yes.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes. All right, we're adjourned. Good night, Tigard.
Right.
Night.